Welcome to the Real News Network. Today I'm joined by Ajaz Ahmed. He's a senior news analyst for the Real News Network. He's also senior editorial consultant for Frontline India. He has written extensively on South Asia and the Middle East. He has taught political science, and today he joins us from New Delhi. Thanks for joining us, Ajaz.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Ajaz, Afghanistan is to be Obama's long war, somewhat like Vietnam was for Kennedy. And to date, the new administration has announced several new strategies, policies towards Afghanistan, one being the appointment of Richard Holbrooke, second being committing more troops to Afghanistan, and also calling for a strategic review of what is happening in the Afghan war. Do you first want to comment on the appointment itself?
Holbrooke came to the region. He visited Afghanistan, Pakistan, and also a very low-profile visit to Delhi. Delhi has resisted the idea that India should be a part of his brief. So that was part of the reason why his visit was so low-profile. He has kept things very close to his chest, but we know that the special envoys are appointed when you want to do things that can't be done simply through the State Department channels. You know, he's an experienced man in these sort of situations. But you see, the main thing that is going on is actually in Washington, where President Obama has called for a full-scale strategic review. Very senior delegations from Pakistan, one headed by the Chief of the Army, General Kiani, the other headed by the Foreign Minister, but which also included the Chief of the ISI, etc. On the one hand, likewise, senior people from Afghanistan and all that. That is where I think the real attention should go, because what has happened is that Barack Obama apparently asked his military commanders just what their objective in Afghanistan was, and they were unable to tell him. So he has ordered a long-term, a full-scale strategic review, which he wants completed before the 2nd of April, when he goes for a NATO meeting in Europe.
And what does the allocation of extra troops to Afghanistan mean on the ground?
The Obama administration has already made two in my view, very dangerous decisions. One is to send 17,000 more troops right away. And even more dangerous and disastrous in the long term, I believe, is the decision to arm a large number of militias in the various provinces where the Taliban are active. These actions will only destabilize and create the situation much worse for the people of Afghanistan and would make the solution even much more difficult.
Ajaz, what about the strategic review Obama is calling for?
I have a view that in the United States would be considered extreme, which is that over the last 30 years, starting with the original US intervention in Pakistan and Afghanistan in 1979-80, the United States has done an enormous damage in both these countries. All of this so-called Islamic terrorism, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, etc., are a consequence of that. Because I hold that view, I believe that the strategic review should be devoted to one objective and one alone: how to execute an orderly retreat for the United States from Afghanistan and Pakistan from this kind of engagement without doing a lot more harm.
Ajaz, recently when Richard Holbrooke was in New Delhi as a part of his first visit to the region, in a very short press conference, he actually stated that for the first time, India, Pakistan, and the United States has a common goal, and that is the defusing of Al-Qaeda. And I thought you'd like to comment on that.
Well, first of all, one doesn't quite know what this Al-Qaeda is. So far as India is concerned, we do not believe that any of the terrorist acts in India, of which there have been several, are connected to what vaguely gets called Al-Qaeda. Indian belief is that these acts have been carried out by operatives who have been originally trained by the Pakistan ISI. Whether or not they did it under their orders, Indians say we don't know. That is yet to be seen. So I have never seen any senior official in India talk about Al Qaeda. So Mr. Holbrooke is trying to pull India into that sort of rhetoric, and India so far has resisted it.
So Ajas, what you're essentially suggesting here is a slow, thoughtful retreat from Afghanistan as well as Pakistan, essentially the region. Obviously, this would mean a great deal of savings for the United States Treasury, and perhaps might be welcome on the part of the people of the United States who is experiencing extreme depression in the country.
Well, my advice is please just get out. One possible way of doing it would be actually to constitute some sort of a conference, some sort of a joint group of the regional powers, which have great interest in containing Islamic terrorism in Afghanistan, such as Iran and Russia and China and Pakistan, and of course India, which has a great interest in Afghanistan of a different kind, not the kind that Mr. Holbrooke is talking about, Al-Qaeda and so on. India would like to see a stable Afghanistan, as would all the other countries. But that would involve normalizing relations with Iran. That would involve bringing in Russia as a partner to work out a solution of that kind, for the United States to retreat and basically hand it over to forces inside Afghanistan, inside Pakistan, and create this kind of a regional force to sort out what sort of settlement can now be made to give the United States the cover to retreat.
Ajas, recently we've been hearing a lot of murmurs that there should be a new leadership in Afghanistan. What does this mean for the Karzai government?
We hear that, and I think it's we can believe that extensive discussions are going on between the NATO countries, the Taliban, the Karzai government, or at least some elements of the Karzai government, under the patronage of Saudi Arabia, Britain, and so on. So we don't know what the outcome of that is. We hear that Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, who has been one of the most dreaded sort of Islamic extremists, is being tipped to be brought back as a major player, possibly as the head of a new government. People at the highest level in the British government have said openly that what Afghanistan needs is a different kind of dictator.
Ajas, in the next segment, let's explore this further, but talk about Pakistan and what this new plight means for the Afghanistani people and what it will mean for the Zardari government.
Donate today and receive a new documentary film available to members of the Real News Network. The History of the National Security State with legendary author Gore Vidal. Bonus features of the DVD include an in-depth response to Vidal from ex-CIA analyst Ray McGovern, who served under 7 U.S. presidents, an exclusive interview with Colin Powell's former Chief of Staff Larry Wilkerson, and an insightful interview with oil policy analyst Antonia Juhas.
The news magazine of the screen. Living glimpses of history in the making.
Hollywood and Washington, there's a symbiotic relationship. They both deal with illusions. Reality doesn't often play much of a part. I think I saw through a myth of the Cold War almost from the beginning. I was a Washington political kid from a political family. Roosevelt first had radio because he had this great speaking voice and everyone liked to hear. Truman proceeded to break every arrangement that Roosevelt had set up for a peaceful coexistence. And Truman thought that it would be a good idea. Why not just stay armed all the time? And then he devised the national security state. You've got to go up and swear allegiance to the United States or else you're a commie. I mean, we had imported fascism. We get Dwight Eisenhower, who said that we have this great military industrial complex. It is a dangerous thing. And he said this is going to change everything. And the way our country's governed is going to change us politically. Along comes Jack Kennedy, who wanted to make his mark, believed in the Cold War. But he said, in this kind of politics, it is the appearance of things that matters. I think everybody should take a sober look at the world about us. The national security state still exists, only it isn't communism anymore, it's terrorism. This is the most serious thing that has happened in the history of the United States. Knowledge is power. We need an honest news system.
We need the real news.
This is the sort of thing we can build right now without anyone else's permission from the government or from the business community. It's the power's in our hands.
If we're not going to sleepwalk into more wars, we think we need to start with a television news network that won't bow to pressure and has the courage to seek facts. And that means independent economics. And that's why we need you.
Make a tax-deductible donation now of at least $10 a month or a one-time give of at least $75. As a thank you for your support, we will send you the new documentary film, The History of the National Security State.